I want you to picture this. Temperatures are at their lowest. People's level of joy is typically at its highest. It's the time of year where we spend a lot of time with family and friends. We laugh a lot, we eat a lot more, right? You know what I'm talking about. The holidays. And every Christmas, without fail, for more Christmases than I would like to admit, I would sit down, I would pull out a sheet of paper, and I would make my list to Santa. And at the top of that list, a little brother or sister for Christmas. Yep, you guessed it. I'm an only child, right? Nothing 80s about that picture at all. And to me, a little brother or sister was always number one on my Christmas list because it was the solution to a perceived problem, right? As an only child, sometimes I felt lonely. It was quiet. It was scary. I didn't have a group of people that grew up in the same house that I did, a built-in set of friends that knew my language, knew what it meant when I acted a certain way. When I'd go to social events and I'd get out of the car, I knew I'm going to have to walk in here, whether it's church or school or a picnic or whatever. I'm going to have to walk in here. I'm going to have to make some friends. But during long road trips to West Texas, 8 hours before streaming, when I would read all of my books because I didn't have anybody else to talk to, I always thought, if I had a little brother or sister, I'd have someone to talk to, right? But let's be honest. I had a charmed childhood. I loved every single minute of it. And being an only child, it prepared me for times in my life to this day when I wasn't just a literal only child, but times when I would be a figurative only child as well. Times when I was in spaces where I may be the only woman, or the only black person, or the only person of color, or the only black woman, right? Moreover, times in my life when I would be in spaces where I was the only person that had the opinion that I had, that had the perspective that I had, even if everybody in the room looked like me. So being an only child was a gift because not only did it prepare me for those situations, but it reinforced my belief that authenticity and community are essential to transformation. Every single one of us is an only child. You may be sitting there and thinking, I have way too many brothers and sisters, I will loan you one, right? But that doesn't matter. Every single one of us is an only child. Because every single one of us is unique. We are all one of a kind. So when I thought about this concept, I went to the dictionary because that's what all good attorneys do. I went to the dictionary first and I looked up the definition for only. And with all of the synonyms that we can think about, another phrase that it had was distinctly characteristic. And I love words, and that was so exciting to me. How cool is that? Distinctly characteristic. Every single one of us is distinctly characteristic. We are the only ones with our set of ears to hear messages. We are the only ones with our hands to decide how to respond. We're the only ones with our feet to walk somewhere, to do something about something. Every single one of us is unique. And I thought about the fact that when we're young, people tell us that all the time. You are so special. You're the only one like you. Oh gosh, we just love you. You are so special. And then something happens when you start being able to feed yourself and drive yourself. You don't hear that message as much, huh? But it's true, you guys. It was true then, And it's true now, even if you don't hear it as much. So it's also based in science. We all know about good old DNA. We get excited and go home and when we're able to say what it stands for. But what is so incredible about DNA is that we all have different DNA, right? So even if you don't believe the people that love you, even if you don't believe the dictionary, those are just words, rely on science. Our DNA is unique, is distinctly characteristic. There are some who say, well, listen, what about identical twins? We got you. What about identical twins? Well, science has an answer for that as well. No matter how close DNA is, cells regulate genes differently. So you can have incredibly similar DNA, but the way in which those genes are regulated is different. Gotcha. Every single one of you is unique, distinctly characteristic. And what's the most incredible thing about that? Sure, you've got your ears, you've got your hands, you've got your feet. But how incredible is it to know that you have unique, one-of-a-kind eyes with which to see the world? Unique, one-of-a-kind perspective. And more importantly than that, you are the only one with your voice. The only one with a voice that has the ability to craft messages. And let me tell you, even if it's the same concept, you have the opportunity to use your voice and craft that message in such a way that it registers with someone who never heard it before. How incredible is that? Okay, Tiana, so we're all unique. We buy into that. We're all one of a kind. Well, why does that matter? Well, it matters because that should be your call to being authentic. That should be your call to being exactly who you are and nobody else. Because you, again, could see a problem that no one else has seen before. But you could also look at the same problem and identify a solution that fixes it once and for all. If you are not being authentic, you're depriving your community. Authenticity is important because we do it on behalf of each other, all of us together being our authentic selves. So if we're not committed to authenticity, then we're depriving our community. We're depriving our community of maybe not spotting that problem, maybe not addressing that issue with our voice. So we've got to do it. Now, I grew up in a household that prioritized service and justice. You know, I always heard if you want peace, work for justice. We live in community, we're inclusive, and that's what we do every single day where we're at, whether it be our kitchen or another state. You do what you can where you are. And so I was involved in activities that reflected that. Surprise. Your parents get to kind of guide you where they want you to go, right? So I was involved in a lot of activities that also reflected that concept. And during my experience, I had opportunities to go on a lot of service trips. And I would work with communities that were distinctly characteristic. Some of them not like mine, not like me. I would be able to work day in and day out, live with people not like myself, being their authentic selves, identify problems, find solutions. And I realized that the most important thing to change in those experiences was to provide a voice for the voiceless. So I decided I wanted to be an attorney. And I went to law school because they make you do that to be an attorney. It's really expensive, but it's required. So I went to law school, and there was only one thing that I did not want to be, and that was a prosecutor. Cue the laughter, right? Only one thing I didn't want to do, and that was to be a prosecutor. And why did I not want to be a prosecutor? Well, I did not see myself reflected in that profession. Everywhere I looked in prosecution, I saw old, white men who were grumpy. And I am none of those things. On a full stomach, I am not grumpy. Okay, so maybe I'm one of those things. But generally speaking, I am none of those things. And so I did not see myself reflected in that profession. But I had a professor in law school, and she said, Tiana, I hear you. I hear what you care about. I hear what you're focused on. And I think that you should take a look at prosecution. And oh gosh, not me. No. I came to law school to be a voice for the voiceless. Justice is important to me. So, professor, you're super smart. I mean, you are teaching at a law school, but prosecution, I can't do that. That's not me. Okay, well, I just want you to promise me that you'll look into it. So I enrolled in a criminal prosecution clinic in law school. And as part of that criminal prosecution clinic, there was an internship at the district attorney's office. And I went to the district attorney's office, and I interned, and I told myself I was going to fiercely protect my authenticity, and I was going to be me. I wasn't going to be anybody else. I was going to be me no matter how hard it was, because we all know authenticity is hard. That's just a fact. And so I did it. I said, I'm going to show them. I'm going to go in here, and they're going to be like, yeah, this is not for you. And I learned so much. I was met in that internship by people who met me with open ears, open minds. And I went into that internship with an open ear, not so much mine, right? Because I decided it wasn't for me. And during that process, to be honest, I met some people whose behavior that I would never want any of us to replicate. But I also met lifelong mentors who, to this day, guide me through our profession. And it was at that point that I decided I'm going to pursue a career in prosecution. Because I recognized, you guys, it hit me like a punch to the gut. I recognized that I had overestimated an environment's ability to impact me, and I had underestimated my ability to impact my environment. I had overestimated the influence a culture can have on me, and I underestimated my ability to create a culture. We influence the spaces that we are in. So I started interviewing for jobs as a prosecutor. And again, I committed myself to authenticity. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go into these interviews as nothing but myself, because it is way difficult to be somebody that you're not every single day. It may be easy for an hour interview, but it's terrible if you have to do it every single day. So I committed myself to authenticity, and guess what? I didn't get offers everywhere I went. But I did get offers in some offices. And I chose Montgomery County. And listen, Montgomery County wanted the authentic Tiana. That's the way it's supposed to be. Does it mean it was easy all the time? Does it mean it's easy present day all of the time? Absolutely not. When we commit ourselves to authenticity, it is challenging. I remember when I got the offer, being told, we just want to let you know that you are going to be the only Black attorney in this office. And I kind of thought, whoa, well, it's 2008. I don't know where I'm at. This is real interesting, but I'm going to go with it, right? Because I'm authentic. But being committed to authenticity and being in a space that encouraged that, I was able to engage in different types of activities. I was able to be the legislative liaison. I was able to be the community liaison. And one experience I had as a community liaison will stay with me forever. We'd organized an event called Donuts for the DA. And during this event, we would take donuts, really self-explanatory, we weren't very creative, we would take donuts out into the community with the district attorney, and we would have conversations. We would let people know what we do and how we do it and get to know them. And one such morning, I had the opportunity to meet a young lady named Joy, and her name was so appropriate because still to this day, I haven't seen Joy, but she still brings her namesake to my heart. So Joy was there with her dad, and they were celebrating because she was in remission from cancer. And when we talked to Joy and her dad about what it is that we do, her dad looked at her and said, "You can do what she does one day." And again, a punch to the gut, because in that moment, I realized that the thing that discouraged me from the profession would not be her reality, because she stood there and she looked up and she smiled at me. And she smiled at me because she saw somebody that looked like her. There will be times in your life when you are in spaces where you are the only one that looks like you, the only one that thinks like you, the only one that dresses like you, the only one that has your objection. Pause. That may be exactly where you are supposed to be. Exactly where you are supposed to be. It is in those moments when you encourage others to be their authentic self. When you pull up more chairs to the table and say, "Take a seat, I want to hear from you." When you support them, even when their perspective is different. We must be fiercely committed to our authenticity. We must resist the urge to be anything but ourselves, because if we are not ourselves, we're depriving our community. There are 1,440 seconds in every day. That is 1,440 seconds that we have to connect, to impact, to inspire, and to transform. That's 1,440 times a day that we must activate our authenticity and encourage others to do the same. The same community that we work on behalf of should be the community that's supporting us through it. And with every one of those 1,440 moments a day, I guarantee you that transformation is going to occur. You are the one that decides if it happens to you or if it happens through you. I encourage all of us to be fiercely committed to ensuring at least one of those two outcomes. Thank you.